The idea of rampant animal disease strikes fear in the heart of livestock producers, as it should. Not only the devastating loss of livestock in many cases, but the business ramifications are equally, often more devastating across the food chain. Yet disease outbreaks are rarely predictable. Thus, pig producers need to be prepared to prevent a disease outbreak on their farm and have a plan to respond should a disease outbreak happen. The Secure Pork Supply Program, or SPS, is a voluntary program that enables pig producers to think through the necessary biosecurity planning that will help prevent the spread of disease and plan for continuity of business in the event of a disease outbreak in their area. The goal of the Secure Pork Supply Plan is stated on the website. If highly contagious and dangerous diseases such as foot and mouth, classical swine fever, or African swine fever are found in the United States, regulatory officials will limit the movement of animals and animal products to try and control the spread of these very contagious animal diseases. The Secure Pork Supply Plan for continuity of business provides ways to prepare and request a movement permit. This means this voluntary program assists producers in creating plans for protecting livestock and continuing business in instances where normal movements of livestock are restricted. Now for this video, we are going to walk you through the writing the Biosecurity and Continuity of Business Plan template found on the Secure Pork Supply website. First, to find the template on the website, start by going to www.securepork.org and click on the Pork Producers tab. Under this tab, you will find many resources for pig producers. On the left-hand side, you will see another tab labeled Biosecurity. Under this tab, you will find templates for preparing biosecurity and continuity of business plans for your farm. To follow along in this video, please find the customizable biosecurity templates. These are provided for pigs reared both strictly indoors and those reared with outdoor access. Remember that this is a template. Edit it so that it reflects your farm. Don't try to force your farm to fit the template. Depending on the regulations in your home state, you may be encouraged to have a written Secure Pork Supply biosecurity and business plan if you wish to continue to sell pigs during a disease outbreak in your region. Once you have the template open, it is important to note that much of this template is designed for a very specific type of pork production. Knowing this, not all the questions within can be reasonably applied to your operation. However, the principles of each question remain the same and can be applied to any pig operation. If you have questions at any point while you are filling out the plan, don't hesitate to reach out to your veterinarian or a Penn State Extension specialist to get assistance in filling out the template. Finally, work to update your plan at least annually in the event of an animal disease outbreak or emergency on your farm in your region. This document will keep yourself and official responders in good communication. Good communication keeps the response process moving smoothly. The first question to answer is to provide the name of your farm. Provide a name that you refer to your farm by, as this information will be most useful in an emergency. Providing the name that you recognize will put you and regulators on the same page. This goes with all the information in this document. Be as clear and accurate to how you refer to your farm as possible. Name, state, then fill out the standard location information for your farm. Two places that commonly cause confusion on the first page are other businesses and secondary premises. For other businesses, they're referring to any business that brings people to your property, regardless if these people actually enter your animal areas or not. This could be a seed sales business or a vegetable stand, but it could also be a routine agritourism event or housing accommodations such as Airbnb or VRBO. It could also be an in-home business such as a consultation or art sales. While many of these visitors are likely to be low risk to your pig operations, it does provide clarity and cover all potential risks of disease entry to your farm, which is important in a disease emergency. The secondary premises question refers to any premises in which you hold animals. In Pennsylvania, each individual 911 address that holds animals must have its own premises ID. Therefore, in PA, there's no such thing as a secondary premises. It might, however, be a good idea to alter the line and list any premises IDs where you routinely share animals. For example, a farrowing operation on premises 1 sends pigs to nursery operation on premises 2 every 21 days. In Pennsylvania, the Department of Agriculture expects a separate plan for each premises. Changing this line does not negate the need for a second plan. Rather, this improves the clarity of contact tracing should an outbreak occur in one of your animal premises. Next, designate a biosecurity manager. This is someone who can articulate the plan and ultimately make decisions if something needs to be changed. And the designee should similarly be able to articulate the plan and make decisions in the absence of the biosecurity manager. Biosecurity manager should ideally be able to check all of the following criteria. Finally, while this tutorial video is aimed to help you translate the template to your farm operation, it is always recommended to seek professional consultation for your final plan. Your regular veterinarian will be a huge asset if there is a disease outbreak in your state, so it is highly recommended to visit with them after building your plan. If you have employees and are familiar with having a written biosecurity plan, the employee section should be fairly self-explanatory. Therefore, we will skip this section for now, and we'll come back to the training section at the end of this tutorial for those who need some additional assistance. The Protecting the Pig Herd section is all about how you move around your farm, or traffic patterns, if you will. These traffic patterns should describe how you discourage uninvited guests from entering the property, how and where you enter the facility, how and where you move your pigs on the site, and how and where you move supplies on and off site. In this section, all protocols for entering the site should be clearly posted at all entry sites. And these signs are recommended to be written in several languages. Depending on your community, you may choose English and Spanish as a second language. Or in Pennsylvania, it might be more practical to have English and German as your second language. Under the Protecting the Pig Herd section of the Biosecurity Plan is a new concept known as the perimeter buffer area. The perimeter buffer area is a location on your farm that does not hold animals. Instead, it acts as a location for traffic buffering from the animal holding area. Describing the location of the perimeter buffer area is a key aspect to this biosecurity plan. Essentially, the perimeter buffer area, or PBA, is the designated location around the animal holding area, or the barn, where you plan to implement some limited biosecurity measures to reduce traffic across to your pigs. The perimeter buffer area is defined by the biosecurity manager and often covers areas of operation that are associated with daily pig production, such as feed bins, offices, storage sheds, manure, storage access points, and carcass disposal points. This area is then defined and utilized to separate traffic that does not need to be associated directly with pig care and does not require specific biosecurity measures to be in place. Very often, recording movement into and out of the perimeter buffer area is a critical step in contact tracing. Hence, the repeated suggestion of logging activity in this area on the template. Perimeter buffer access points are the locations where traffic is permitted to enter the perimeter buffer area. This is usually restricted to just a few locations. Finally, it is then listed that a visual description of the perimeter buffer area can be found in the mapping section of this template. In our second video of this series, we will review mapping the perimeter buffer area and other important areas on your farm as associated with this template. In the event of a dangerous animal disease outbreak on your farm, response from regulatory officials will work to contain that disease outbreak and to keep it from spreading. In this section, the content is looking predominantly for where you either already have a cleaning and disinfection station, or, and more commonly, where you might put a cleaning and disinfection station in the event of a disease outbreak that needs to be contained on your farm. Additionally, this section of the plan requests that information describing the cleaning and disinfection station is described within the body of this template, including how water is handled. This again is in an effort to contain disease spread. Describing where potentially contaminated water is moving will help regulatory officials keep track of potential spread of animal disease. This section of the template also asks for a description from the biosecurity manager if there is access to appropriate equipment and supplies to operate the cleaning and disinfection stations, as well as an SOP and identification of individuals who are trained to operate the cleaning and disinfection station. Finally, this section requests information on how cleaning and disinfection might be performed on site in the event that the cleaning and disinfection station cannot be utilized, such as describing alternative locations for cleaning off equipment or alternative strategies for cleaning off equipment. An example of an alternative strategy might be to just utilize a hose in a different location, or just to not allow visibly contaminated vehicles to leave the site. If you do not have a suitable location for a cleaning station, identify the closest truck or car wash and state that in the plan in this location. Again, the goal of this template is to describe traffic as it moves on, off, and around your site. Here, we have a section for designated parking. Simple enough. Where should people park when they want to get onto your site? Next, we move on to the section for line of separation. Much like the perimeter buffer area, the line of separation, or LOS, is the line that you, the biosecurity manager, specify placement of. The line of separation is very often the marker of the last biosecurity application before entering the main barn or animal holding area. Choose a line that is visible, has limited entry, and doesn't impede pig care for the line of separation. You may or may not have extensive biosecurity. That's okay. Just articulate what you do have. For example, if it is just a boot change, then be clear that a boot change needs to happen at the line of separation. Or if your biosecurity at the line of separation is downtime, a full shower, and change into clean barn-provided clothes and boots, then list all of those steps for crossing the line of separation. This point is to be very clear and to list what biosecurity steps you do take. This section of the template looks to contain animal movement and potential cross-contamination. Within the website, you can find a template for animal movement records. These animal movement records can be found under the Pork Producers tab, under Biosecurity. Then on the left-hand side, click the tab Movement Records. Here you can find template movement logs for animal movements, as well as visitor and equipment movements as they're related to your site. Again, these movement logs are very useful in the event of an animal disease outbreak. Movements on and around the site for vehicles and equipment should also go through basic vehicle cleaning and disinfecting protocols. These protocols are relatively easy to implement for any size farm. In this section, there are also a series of bullets to check, essentially indicating yes, we do that. Beyond cleaning and disinfecting, some sites do share equipment for any number of reasons. Any equipment that enters into the perimeter buffer area or line of separation has an expectation that equipment is clean and disinfected. Be sure to check that statement that matches your previous section about how to cross the perimeter buffer area and line of separation. The challenge here comes with animal transportation. Here, you might want to adjust where you originally planned to have your perimeter buffer area to be sure that once animals have crossed it, you limit the amount of crossing back and forth across the perimeter buffer area and into the biosecure area of your farm. Personnel or any visitors really should be trained how to properly enter your perimeter buffer area and cross the line of separation in order to interact with pigs. If you don't have employees on your farm, consider this section for any visitors or customers that might come to your farm. What might be a bit tricky here is that this section is worded very strictly. However, the strict wording presents the ideal situation. Much of the template language can be applied to farms simply by letting personnel and visitors know the basic hygiene expectations before arriving to the farm. Always remember, however, that this is a template. So feel free to edit this section to fit your farm and how you actually communicate or will communicate biosecurity to personnel and visitors. Essentially, this section indicates the expectation that humans interacting with pigs will practice good hygiene of themselves, their clothes, their transportation, or anything else that may come into the farm and enter the perimeter buffer area. In the event of a disease outbreak on your farm, there will need to be a strict personal hygiene practices for those entering or leaving the farm. In this instance, these recommendations will be required to the greatest extent possible, i.e., the presented ideal situation, and describes what is currently done and what can be done to manage personnel in the event of a disease outbreak. This also applies to the entry and exit procedures for personnel, where the entry logbook is a critical tool for disease tracing that should be kept at all times. When describing procedures for biosecurity entry and exit, feel free to add to the list of bullet points. You may not currently have individuals put on disposable or disinfected footwear, but you may have them change into coveralls or change their boots. Putting on gloves or disposable footwear and coveralls can be listed as an additional step that you would practice in a disease outbreak. Remember that this is a description of what all individuals crossing the line must do in order to gain entry to the site. Again, delete and edit this section as appropriate to your operation. The section below it says to either modify or delete the section containing language for multiple pig buildings on one site. This refers to if you have a biosecurity step where you cross a perimeter buffer area, but then each building has its own line of separation. If you don't have multiple buildings on your site, where you are routinely crossing multiple lines of separation, feel free to disregard this section and delete it from your template altogether. Finally, it is important to note for crossing the line of separation, the biosecurity procedures to get into the barn should be conducted in reverse in order to get out of the barn. Again, the goal here is to stop the spread of pathogens. This includes pathogens from coming onto the farm, as well as pathogens from getting off the farm. On any pig operation, pigs, or in some cases semen, will need to be moved on or off farm at some point. Much like the clean and disinfect station mentioned in Section 3, this section focuses on pig and/or semen movements during a disease outbreak. It is best practice not to move unhealthy animals and only move healthy animals and semen, and to isolate those upon arrival to a new location. However, it is reasonable that this is not always possible. Rather, focus on providing details that differentiate between what is currently being done and what will be done in the event of a disease outbreak. Be sure to read the questions carefully. Some of the wording may not apply to your farm at all. Generally, this section is referring to any animal disease outbreak control area. In the event of a disease outbreak, infected animals and semen will not be permitted to be moved or sold. Your focus here is to work with officials to ensure animals are healthy before any movement occurs in an FAD control area. Simply, you are being asked to validate that you will ensure that only healthy animals and semen are moved on and off your farm if you are working with a farm in a control area. In the event of an animal disease outbreak, movement will be restricted or stopped altogether. Therefore, it is highly recommended that producers have an emergency plan for dealing with animals in the event that they cannot be sold or moved for an extended period of time. In particular, the contingency plan in Pennsylvania is critically important and should align with available resources on nutrient and mortality management. It is especially important should the last resort mass euthanasia be needed on farm. In this instance, be sure to ask yourself, how long can animals remain on site, and assume your worst case scenario on your farm. For example, if you are a large finishing operation with pigs due to market in just a few weeks when movements are shut down, how long can you hold those animals in that facility before their welfare is starting to be impacted by not being moved or sold? It is a best biosecurity practice to encourage one-way movement of animals from either a trailer to the barn or vice versa across the line of separation. Free movement of animals across the line of separation should be discouraged at all times. In the event that your farm is permitted to move animals during a disease outbreak, this section of the template confirms that animal movements will not induce a risk of cross-contamination. Additionally, all loading areas should be cleaned post-animal movements, again focusing on good cleaning practices to manage the spread of pathogens both onto and off the farm. Similar to the animal contingency plan, carcass disposal planning and manure management are designed to be answered under the premise of a disease outbreak response. Ask yourself, how will you handle carcass and manure disposal in the event that these are contaminated with a contagious animal disease? The template offers minimal planning considerations for both carcass disposal and manure management. In Pennsylvania, be sure this section of the SPS plan is in line with the nutrient management plan for the respective premises. This is especially important if animals will need to be disposed of on a premises. If it is not possible to plan for the worst case scenario and carcass disposal or manure management within the boundaries of your nutrient management plan, reach out to experts at Penn State Extension for contingency planning. While exceptions to environmental protection regulations might be made during an animal disease emergency, those cannot be counted on and should be planned around. Sections 9 and 10 of the Secure Pork Supply template focus on pests such as rodents, flies, wildlife, and other animals, and feed management. This focus is on disease movement by non-vehicle sources. In these instances, pests and feed deliveries could act to bring disease onto the farm, as well as carry disease off of the farm. Describe to what extent that pests are currently managed and to what extent feed deliveries interact with your perimeter buffer or biosecure area. This allows regulators to understand to what degree there are potential routes of disease travel on and off the farm. The language offered in the template are best practices for managing pests, wildlife, and feed in a biosecure manner. Again, feel free to edit or modify any of these suggested bullets as they appropriately reflect management of pests and feed on your farm. Finally, we will return to the employee training section of this template. The key part of this plan focuses on ensuring employees are aware of the expectations for practicing biosecurity on site, and they are up to date on any changes that need to be made to the plan. Even if the employees are family, it is worth placing every trained individual in this plan. In the event of a disease emergency, the more information, the better. Official responders will have an expectation that in the event of a disease outbreak, all potential animal caretakers or anyone interacting with the farm will have knowledge of practicing good biosecurity. We hope this video will be of use to you as you fill out your secure pork supply plan. Remember to reach out to your veterinarian, extension, or local officials for assistance in developing your plan. In the event of a disease emergency, response will happen quickly to quell the spread of disease. Preparation protects your farm from furthering the disease spread or from becoming a part of the disease outbreak. Preparation also protects your business during a restricted marketing or animal movement response, allowing you to continue to move your animals on a restricted basis rather than not at all.